Former Commonwealth Secretary General Chief Emeka Anyaoku is advising that the president should set up a constituent assembly as one of the ways to resolve the challenges the nation is faced. And tonight we dissect issues relating to the relationships between the states and the federal government in reference to funds available to the federated units and the poverty situation in the country. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today, live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Wakimalo here in Abuja. So much to talk about tonight. So we're hearing from the Patriot. They are a group of elder statesmen, eminent Nigerians, who talk about the state of the nation, who in the interest of the nation come forward to proffer solutions. They've met with the president today, and they're already talking about the way forward, how we can fix the economy, fix the constitutional crisis, and a lot of issues that the nation is currently facing. So they met with President Bola Tinubu today, and they're proffering solutions. Part of the solution is that they are picked all in the Nigerian constitution, and they're asking the president to set up a constituent unit, a constituent assembly, where also at the end of the day there will be a need for the National Assembly to pass a referendum such that whatever comes out of the Constituent Assembly proposition will be adopted in reframing our Constitution. Let me allow you to listen to Chief Emeka Anyaoku, a former General Secretary of the Commonwealth.
We put some proposals to Mr. President, and we urged him to send a president's executive bill to the National Assembly, a bill that will call for two essential measures. One, the convening of a National Constituent Assembly to be mandated to produce a new draft constitution. And we suggested that such National Constituent Assembly should consist of individuals elected by the people on non-party basis. Say, for example, 3 individuals per state, per each of the 36 states, and 1 from the Federal Capital Territory. And they should be mandated to produce a new draft constitution. And we also suggested that in the bill, the National Assembly should be asked to legislate for a national referendum, because as our laws stand at the moment, we have no provision for a national referendum.
Well, the elder statesman spoke quite extensively about the plans by the Patriots. Some of the members of the group, you see them who flanked the former Secretary General Chief Emeka Anyaoku, the like of Senator Shehu Sani, Mr. Wale Okunoyi, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Mike Ozekome, and the rest of them who are present. Now, of course, the former Minister of Information, Labaran Maku, all of them who are members of the group that visited the president. Of course, you can see conspicuously there the former governor of Ogun State. But that was not the only issue raised in the meeting when Chief Emeka Anyaoku was talking to the media about the outcome of that meeting. He also responded to issues related to the nationwide August protests. Take a listen.
We also talked about the current crisis of protests throughout the country. And we advised the president that in our view, the government at the federal and state levels should dialogue with the leaders of the protests. The government should take the initiative in dialoguing with the leaders of the protests. And secondly, we advised that the law enforcement agencies, namely the police and the army, should avoid using lethal weapons in the management of the protests so that we do not have casualties, people killed because the law and order enforcement agencies are managing the protests.
Chief Emeka Anyaoku there. Some of those things that Chief Emeka Anyaoku has said today will form part of our conversation tonight. So are we looking into a brand new constitution? Is it some kind of constitutional revolution that that is being proposed there? Will the president take action? Will the president consider the proposal? Will all of these suggestions being made by the Patriots as a group, will it solve in part some of the challenges the nation is facing tonight? I have someone who's had a lot of experience as a two-term governor. He served as two-term also as minister. He's been in the National Assembly, so he's got a lot of experience, and he will be sharing those with us tonight in this next 1 hour or so. So stick around with me, but first and foremost, let me serve you with some of your political roundup stories.
Former President Shekarau has called for moral readjustment and positive reorientation among Nigerians to squarely address the current impediments affecting the socio-economic and political development of the country. He made the call in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital, while receiving an audience 6 members of the House of Representatives and co-sponsors of the bill on single 6-year term and rotation between the North and South. The delegation is led by former chairman of the House of Representatives on downstream petroleum, Ugo Chinyere, at his Olusegun Obasanjo's residential library in the state capital.
What I know about Nigeria is that if we get it right, the leadership, the team, because one tree does not make a forest. You need a good leader, but you also need the team to work with the leader.
A federal high court sitting in Kaduna has declined jurisdiction in the fundamental rights suit filed by the immediate past governor of the state, Mr. Nasir El-Rufai, against the State House of Assembly. The presiding judge, Justice Urwano Aikawa, who held a virtual session, took motions from the applicant on Monday, 29 July 2024. Justice Aikawa also dismissed El-Rufai's application for recusal, as the applicant failed to provide cogent reasons or fact for the court to do so, as established by several cases decided by the courts. Meanwhile, the Kano State government has filed a fresh fraud charge against the immediate past governor, Dr. Abdullahi Ganduje, is Commissioner for Local Government, Muritala Garo. The charges, meticulously documented and submitted by the Kano State Ministry of Justice, accused the defendants of conspiring to divert over 57.43 billion naira meant for the 44 local government areas of Kano State. In the charge, it is claimed that the colossal sum intended for developmental projects and public services was allegedly funneled into personal accounts and used to acquire luxurious properties, both locally and internationally. In Kebbi State, the State Independent Electoral Commission has refuted claims made by the People's Democratic Party, PDP, that its chairman and commissioners are Kakai members of the All Progressive Congress, APC. At a press conference in Brenin Kebbi, the Kebbi State capital, the commissioner in charge of information and communication at the commission, Mr. Aliu Zaga, says the commission is committed to providing a level playing ground for all political parties in the state ahead of the August 31 local government election. Meanwhile, a group of civil society under the aegis of Coalition for Democratic Accountability and Electoral Reform is asking President Bola Tinubu to immediately address the base demand of Nigerians in order to avert another nationwide protest. At a news conference in Abuja, the convener of the group, Mr. Ame Peter, urges the president to review some of his policies, which has contributed to the economic hardships affecting the citizens. The group also condemned the attacks on peaceful protesters by some hoodlums, just as he called on security to immediately release the innocent citizens arrested during the protests.
The use of live ammunition against peaceful protesters is intolerable and must end immediately. We also declare that the harassment and intimidation of journalists who are bona fide members of the fourth estate of the realm for covering the protest is a breach of the Constitution.
Lastly, in Yobe State, a coalition of Yobe South youth groups have distanced themselves from the agitation for the recall of Senator Ibrahim representing the zone in the National Assembly. The chairman of the coalition, backed by Hassan Adamu, at a press briefing in PoliticsToday, Yobe State, passed a vote of confidence on Senator Ibrahim for impacting positively on the lives of his constituents. The group urged the constituents not to be used by political distractors, but unite so as to reap the dividends of democracy.
Thank you so much. For now, we are hearing and we're getting some information in respect of the alleged raid on the Labour House, the Nigerian Labour Congress headquarters in Abuja. The Nigerian police force is now telling us what exactly is the exact situation. Now, the police is saying that there is no truth in the allegation that some of the officers of the Nigerian police force raided the Nigerian Labour Congress headquarters in Abuja against any of his staff or secretariat or his leadership, but that it's going after a prime criminal suspect in an ongoing investigation, which was such a criminal was traced to a shop within a building in the Central Business District area of Abuja. According to the police in a statement released today by a spokesperson, Muyiwade Jobi says detectives armed with the appropriate legal authority conducted an operation at the location, which turned out to be the NLC building, and this well-coordinated lawful operation was solely aimed at apprehending the prime suspect, a foreign national implicated in numerous criminal activities across Nigeria and other African countries. The police went further to say that the operation had no connection with the NLC, secretariat, staff, or leadership. The NLC secretariat, according to the police, was not the focus of the operation, which it says was targeted at a rented shop within the building used by the suspect as a front for its criminal activities in Nigeria. The police force further explains that it's seeking the cooperation and support of the NSA leadership as they continue the investigation, which is vital to safeguarding the nation. The Nigerian police force is clarifying the alleged raid on the NLC headquarters in Abuja. The police have said today that action was a coordinated investigation and which was lawfully conducted according to standards, and that they did that in pursuit of a criminal, a suspect that has been troubling of a crime of an international dimension. So we're getting all of that at the top of the hour on Channels Television News. So let's get to our main conversation tonight, of course. Over the past few days, we've been having conversations around issues relating to the relationship between the state and the federal government, especially in the wake of the nationwide protest that has engulfed the streets of Nigeria. And now things are escalating so much that there are now questions as to the resources available to the state government, the state governors, and what they have used it for. And a lot of the governors are already coming out to explain that. But again, how in a federal system can we cohabit a federal government, the state government, and the local government in such a way that it will be for the benefit of the Nigerian people? Now, you heard what Chief Emeka Anyaoku said today, that one of, he was talking on behalf of the Patriots, a group who visited the president today, and they're saying one of the ways to resolve Nigeria's problem is to constitute a constituent assembly that will come up with solutions and then ratified through a referendum to be passed by the National Assembly, and they propose that to the president. Will the president take it? Is that the right way? Let me speak with someone who is a two-time governor of Kano State, a former minister of education, a former senator, Senator Ibrahim Shekarau, who is live with us here in Abuja. So thank you so much indeed, Your Excellency, for joining us.
Thank you very much, Sheun. It's a pleasure being here again.
Thank you so much. Always an honor to have you on the set here.
Thank you.
Let's begin with what has become a news that is just in, which is the statement from the Patriots. And these eminent Nigerians have visited the president, and they're proposing a constitution of a constituent assembly. And I dare say that this is not the first time we're hearing such. We've seen PRUNACO, we've seen Confab 2014, and there are different reports that have come out of those which are now gathering dust in some offices in Abuja. But do you think that is the way forward?
Well, thank you very much, Sheun. It's quite a pleasure once again, and thank you, and my regards to you and our viewers. Sheun, you see, I have always had the opinion that Nigeria has enough of the laws to govern our operations. The Constitution, the various legislation, national, state, left, right, and center. Our problem is attitudinal. Our leaders must accept that there are a number of things that are not necessarily written down in our law books, not necessarily written down in the Constitution. I have always argued that there is what I call the Constitution of common sense. There are a number of things that ordinarily a responsible leadership, an organized leadership that recognizes its responsibility and the responsibility of others should not be a problem. Agreed, the Constitution has defined the role of the federal government, has defined the role of the state government and that of the local government. And these definitions are largely to allow smooth operation and some level of independence. But that does not mean we should be operating at a very parallel dimension, because ultimately it is the same common pool of people that we are governing. The people at the local government are the same people at the state level, are the same people at the federal level. So there has to be some synergy, there has to be some understanding, there has to be some cooperation. We have had this in the past. There were instances that I remember when I was governor. Obasanjo called us. I said, look, while the Constitution agreed or spells out that you are independent of the federal government, but there should be some synergy, there should be some understanding. And I remember very well, the issue then was that he was complaining. Most governors don't even inform him. They would travel out, and he would want to reach out to a particular governor, and or somebody would tell him, oh, I saw your governor yesterday on the street of London, in the UK, and so on. He feels very embarrassed. He said, just let me know. The Constitution doesn't have to say that no governor should move out of his state without the approval of Mr. President. It's not about approval. It's not about taking permission from Mr. President. But you're operating within the same environment. Whatever the president does affects every citizen of Nigeria, whether at state level or at the local government level, and vis-a-vis the state. So I think, in my opinion, we need not to go this length of new confab, new conferences, and so on. The question I kept emphasizing, with all due respect to people occupying offices, we need to put our thinking cap. Know what is right at any given time. Give due regard to the various levels of our operation and some understanding. So that I don't see any reason why. I was in opposition for almost all the period. I served as governor for 8 years. But we operated very well. We cooperated with the federal government. There were points of disagreement, and we do that with due respect. And I recall very well, President Obasanjo also reciprocated by respecting some of us in the opposition. The opposition doesn't mean you should be subservient to the federal government. Of course, my state was independent. We were in a different party. But we knew that there is a central government that coordinates all that we do.
Let me take you quickly, because you served at that level, at the national level. You have served as a governor of the state. Then you have served in the National Assembly.
Exactly.
Then you have a very holistic perspective.
I was in the public service for 26 years.
Absolutely.
The permanent secretary and so we know all
So
this.
you've seen it all.
Yeah.
Civil servant, elected governor, a minister, elected senator. So you have a holistic, and I'm talking to the right man here, who's had a very good grasp of Nigeria. Now, let's begin. There are those who believe that the problem of Nigeria, first and foremost, is its constitution. And there are those who argue that, yes, it is the problem of the of constitution, because the constitution does not agree or does not really reflect the tendency of the different constituents of Nigeria. It doesn't really reflect that word, the people of Nigeria or the peoples of Nigeria. And there are those who will say, let's jettison it. Let's really have a constitution that will reflect, in truth, the people of Nigeria. And so if we are to do that, and based on what Chief Emeka Anyauku is saying, maybe we should forget about the past and look towards the future. Is how to jettison this constitution the right way to go?
Well, I think, you see, no constitution on earth, no any written law on earth is perfect. And hence our constitution, no matter what changes you make, with time, circumstances do dictate what to adjust, what to change, what to remove, what to add, what to cancel, what to improve upon. So while I agree that the Constitution is full of some discrepancies where there are disagreements, which were discovered through the process of our operation, but I think it's not totally the issue of the Constitution. No matter how perfect the rules and the regulations or content of the Constitution are, it is still boils down to the operators of the Constitution. Let me quickly give you an example. The Constitution separates powers between the executive and the legislature. It's just to give a defined role of each of the two arms of government. But what I kept emphasizing, the ultimate goal is the generality of the Nigerian populace. So whatever law you do, it is affecting the general public, and therefore there must be a meeting point. I expect the executive to always carry the legislator along. If I may quickly give an example of my operations in Kano, I had 40 state assembly members, out of which about a dozen were in the opposition, the PDP then. There was nothing we did without the... I met them at the end of every month. I call all the 40 of them. We either take lunch, we take dinner, we exchange felicitations, we joke, and then we sit down to discuss issues of the state. They will advise us, we will advise them. There was no time I sent any proposal of any legislation to the State Assembly without we sitting down to discuss and the details, dotting the I's, cutting the T's. So by the time we send anything to the State Assembly, almost all of them are in the picture. There was no time we prepared any budget without the State Assembly. I expect such a thing to operate even at the national level, where the president will be interacting not only even with the leadership of the National Assembly. Once in a while, if I were the president, once at least twice in a year, meet all the legislators in a room, declare an immunity for all, let everybody say whatever he wants. Anybody showing that will abuse you inside the room will not do so outside on the street. Allow them to vomit. Let the opposition be there. Let there be discussion with the members.
And this should be regular.
Regular. In fact, I was doing it monthly in my state. So for the 8 years, I have never had one day disagreement with my state assembly.
So for the national, it will be the governors, the traditional rulers.
Exactly. I carried, thank you, you mentioned the traditional rulers. I didn't have to wait for anybody to make provision in the Constitution before I involved in traditional institutions. I set up an advisory council of about 50 wise men with all categories, the youth, the women, the young, the old, the bureaucrats, and the politicians, the religious leaders, 50. I and the Emir of Kano were the co-chairmen. We were chairing the council. We meet every last Thursday of every month. We discuss issues of the state. And I told that council, you have no-go area on anything. There were instances when the council will invite me to explain what we have done in government, what policy we have brought, what is the wisdom. So we interacted. I carried the traditional institutions along. I met all the district heads. I set up committees in the local government and the ward, and we met them chairmen of the committees. They meet every month. We met the local governments, giving them sitting allowances. We met the local governments to buy new brand vehicles for all the districts to enable them to take a tour regularly to their local governments and visit. And for that reason, the emir said every week, every district head must turn in a report of what is happening in his constituency. So we carried them along. We reviewed their salaries, we reviewed their scheme of service, we made them to be happy, and we carried them along. We didn't have to wait for the Constitution and for the legislature. And there should be, I remember when late Eradua came into office, the very month he was sworn in, he invited all of us, the governors, regardless of our political affiliation. He said, look, you and I are now elected. Let's forget our political differences. Let's forget our parties. You are my #1 liaison officer in your states. And he made sure there was nothing he did in the state without involving us. I, as an opposition then in the NPP, Eradua was PDP president. But he invited me. There was no appointment he made from Kano, be it minister, ambassador, advisor, without calling me to make my own input before he even announces it to the appointee. So that you eliminate this disagreement between minister, federal is fighting, state governor.
So you are advising that President Tinubu needs to bring stakeholders more to himself.
Absolutely.
He needs to listen to more. He needs to widen his net of interaction.
Absolute interaction with the state governors, open, not just the usual formal council meeting. No, let there be an atmosphere of friendliness, an atmosphere of relaxation. Send out all the media people, the aides and so on. Sit to them. Let them open up. Through that, you learn a lot, and you share with them your policies.
But there's another side to it. Yes, meeting and having conversation with those who lead, either politically or in the traditional sense or at the grassroots.
Yes.
But what we saw at the protest, we saw young people, especially in the northern region of the country.
Yeah.
And I made an allusion to the governor of Nasarawa said yesterday. Yeah. There seems to be a narrative and a dimension,
maybe a disconnect
between the northern leaders, lately, and how it used to be that the voice of the emirs and the voice of the governors were the voice of God. But now, again, the clerics were also highly respected. But there seems to be some disconnect when people think that they can no longer trust some of these institutions and establishment any longer. And you see now that a more cohesive North has become so fluid now, and there is an independence and the freedom of the individual. Even the younger ones are getting to the street, and easily they could be called, but now it's now very difficult. How do you handle those kind of situations?
You see, Sheun, very easy. You see, even a child of 2-3 years, when you recognize such a child, the child will respect you. The child will respond. So it depends. There is a total disconnect. There is loss of confidence. People are not carried along in governance. So we need to restore confidence in governance in Nigeria at all levels. Where a situation where a governor will just wake up, behaving like a military governor, deciding project A should be there, project B should be there without any consultations. What we're doing, as I told you earlier on, if the child, if the youth know that you are involving their elders in the process of governance, they will certainly listen to them. You see, if you know that I respect your father, I visit him, he visits me, we discuss, and whatever we do, your father will be telling the child that I'm involved in this. There is no way you, as the child of your father, will disrespect me, because he knows that his elders, his father, his leaders are involved in the business of governance. So I think it's a matter, that's why I said the problem is that of attitude. Fortunately, I'm not speaking of anything abstract. I have done it. It is possible. It is working. It worked for us.
Let's look at the situation and the pictures on the screen.
Yeah.
Young 8-year-old, 9-year-old, 10-year-old, and this is Kano's on the street of Kano.
That's right.
Are you worried? Is this the state that you governed?
Oh, definitely. It's very, very unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate. You see, unfortunately, when you don't involve the leaders, I've told you just a moment ago, we set up...
Look at what is going on.
Yeah.
Infrastructure we
set up consultative forum in almost every ward, 484 wards. In every ward, we have a committee of not less than 10 elders. And they sit to meet every month. They discuss issues on the locality. Youth are being involved. So even this so-called lack of employment, poverty does not mean madness. So if people are carried along, people have confidence in the government. I remember Mala Aminu Kano 40, 50 years ago, he used to say that if the ordinary man on the street will go into the market and be a load carrier and will get 3 pence, if he has confidence and trust in government, he will bring 2 pence to the government and live on 1 penny because he knows the services of 2 pence will reach out to him. A situation where a city or any of the major towns in our state is lacking very good water, drinking water, is lacking good network, road connection, and rural infrastructure coming up. But they see frivolous projects worth billions. If your father is a pensioner, for example, he is being owed his pension for months or for years. There's no way you and the family will respect the government. That's why when we came in, the first thing we did, I took back 20 years back, and within 2 years, we cleared every 1 kobo of the pensioners. They became happy. Their parents became happy. A young man was sharing with us that before we paid, his father retired 15 years earlier on. He could not pay the fees. He could not feed the house. He dropped out of school. But immediately we paid him his pension. He decided to open a small shop selling some provisions. He now said they can now go to school, they can now feed. No pensioner will be given his payment and go to deposit account. They go to the market. The money will circulate. I always wonder why the leaders will not have that godly mind to settle this entire thing. So in a nutshell, back to what you're saying, this street things is an outburst of the anger and disconnect from the government. People just feel right inside them that the government is not for them. So unfortunately, it's just like the school children.
But I mean, what about this narrative being painted that there is a particular action against the Tinubu government coming from some northern elites?
No.
Is there anything?
No, I think that is very naive. I don't trust that. I don't believe in that. You see, we have had crises in the past. When we had the NSAS, there were killings, there were destruction of properties in Lagos. Did that mean that they were after the government of that particular time? No, I don't believe that. I think even these excuses of it is from the opposition and so, does a hungry man wait for anybody to instigate him when he gets the slightest opportunity? A hungry man, people say it's an hungry man.
Quickly,
so
sir.
I think I dismiss that. It's not an excuse.
I have about 60 seconds to go on the break. Well, are you worried as a leader of Kano about the emirship and what is happening in the emirate?
Well, I think I beg to decline because, you see, I'm a very senior member of the Emirate Council. Apart from that, I have governed that state. I'm a very senior citizen of the state. Any matter that is in court, the day the matter went to court, I stayed back. I said I will not discuss, I will not intervene, I will not interfere into the matter because the matter is in court. So I don't want
But does it bother you?
Naturally from Kano, I will want everything in Kano to be peaceful. So we are waiting, and my prayer is that we overcome it soonest. and there will be peace, because we need the traditional institutions. I've just told you how I engage them, how I involve them, and that led to peace. So I think I wouldn't want to go into that, because I belong to the institution.
I mean, rather than these legal path in resolving it, would you rather prefer a more political way in resolving it? Will it have some more impact?
Well, unfortunately, it is the political angle that seems to have led us into all this crisis. You see, if the politicians have kept away from all of these things, and of course the traditional institutions, if they are properly engaged, I don't see any area of disagreement. Just the way I explained the federal government, state and local government, the same way the traditional institutions are leaders by their own right in the society. The governor or the government and any government appointee is also a leader. There has to be this synergy of understanding. I've just told you, the 50 people advisory council I set up, it was I and the Emir of Kano that were presiding over such a sitting. So you find that by involving the Emir himself, bringing myself, and all categories of people in that assembly, we were already working together, and everybody was happy.
All right, let's take a break. And when we return, more to talk about on the way out of the Nigerian situation, and perhaps get an insight on the ones that might be cheaper and the ones that might be fairer in terms of how every Nigerian will accept the solutions to the challenges. We'll be right back. Our conversation with Senator Ibrahim Shekarau will continue after this break. Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Senator Ibrahim Shekarau, a two-time governor, a two-time minister, and he was a former senator.
Yes.
He's been speaking with us on the state of the nation. Thank you so much indeed for your time tonight.
Thank you.
I mean, there is this back and forth, and I know that this conversation was also on how the federal allocation could be shared. And I remember this was a heated debate, around the time, I think, when Chukwuma Soludo was the governor of the CBN, and some governors in the Governors Forum took the fight to the president to say, whatever is in the coffers, let us share it. And, sovereign wealth fund, there are a whole lot of argument around how the wealth of the nation could be shared.
Yeah.
But what you see today, there's an increased revenue money allocating to all of the tiers of government. But the big question is, how responsible are the governors and the state government and the federal government and the federal government to the people of the nation? Transparency and accountability has been the issue now. What do you think that is playing on right now? Can we sustain the way things are going?
No, certainly we cannot. And people have been crying out, this system is certainly too expensive. And unfortunately, apart from the high cost of running the government, with all due respect, we are getting not the right people all the time in position of offices. A situation whereby people get to office because of the money they have, because of the godfatherism, because of the party influence, and so on. We can never get it right until the process is clean enough. The process is such that the right people with the right background and experience are allowed to go into office, either elected or appointed. So I think, Sheun, our greatest problem, as I see it, as you said, having gone through all the process, is the problem of getting the people occupying offices, be it executive position or appointment at any level, appreciating the fact that they are there to serve. That's one. Number two, you need to have the ability to weigh and identify people's priorities. It's not about your priority as president. It's not your priority as a party. It's not the priority of the governor and so on. It is, what is the priority of the people you are governing?
But they sold a manifesto to the people.
Well, with all due respect, I've said it sometime, I think in this platform or some other places, I challenge more than 50 or 60% of those elected, you will discover. And I asked maybe social scientists to conduct a research on this. Most of them have never set their eyes on the manifestos of their parties.
So it was made for them.
Exactly.
They are alien
exactly.
to those documents.
Most of them, the parties, with due respect to the parties, there's hardly any party that does not have a manifesto with the Constitution. But the parties, there was a time our party went as far as saying you have to sign an undertaking as a candidate that you will operate the manifesto of the party. By the time they get into office, the way we're operating, the manifesto is the manifesto of the mind of the chief executive. Otherwise, you will not be seeing all of this rubbish going on, misplacement of priorities, and very bogus project, elephant project, billions of naira being wasted, while the people that you are governing are dying. Basic things are not there. So I think manifesto, yes. I think we need a lot of societal orientation, not only on the electorate, to understand the need to elect in right people, but also a review of the process even within the political parties, so that the process is such that the political parties will have candidates that are really acceptable to the people, candidates that people are judged to have gotten all what it takes to be there. But what we're having today is a matter of people coming into office behaving, as I said earlier on, with all due respect to the military, like military governors. You just wake up, governor will decide a particular project.
No checks and balances.
No checks and balances. They don't
no consideration.
They consult
no
no
consultation
one.
to
They consult
the people.
no one. It took us months when I was building up our budget. The planning department, we held series of consultation with elders across the board, as I told you, the council, the local government, and we went out to ask people, what are their priorities? There are peculiarities, there are demands different from one local government to the other. And people's aspirations are not being addressed.
So the governors need to change their attitude to governance.
Absolutely.
But if you look at the President Tinubu administration and some of the challenges that that Nigeria is facing under this government, you look at the indices of those who will challenge the capability of those handling the economy. And there are those who will say whether or not this government is not on the right track in getting us to where they promised they will get us. They're selling a renewed hope to Nigerians, but people are dying and people are suffering in hardship. If you, with the benefit of your experience in government and governance, what do you think this government needs to do urgently to turn around these indices that are gone in the negative in just 1 year?
Well, I think as many opinions have been expressed since the beginning of the protest and the address of Mr. President, from what we read, from what we hear, the analysis that most people are not satisfied with what the President has given in his address. Honestly, what I expect personally is out of the list of all issues identified, I expect one or two. Look at what people call low-hanging fruits and address them. You see, issue of this subsidy matter, to be or not to be, everybody agreed. I think I was here on this platform when I said that if I were president, I wouldn't have mentioned anything about subsidy the day he was being sworn in. To be fair to him...
Tactical error, isn't it?
Very well. To be fair to him, Buhari government did not put it in the 2023 budget, and he came midway. Instead of sitting down to see what it is, if I were him, I wouldn't make any reference to it until I get into office, I get my economic advisors, experienced people. Let's look at what the previous government had done.
He's made that misstep, according to you.
Yeah.
I said it here.
I said it here.
And that was a foundation to all of the economic crisis that we are facing.
Oh, certainly.
But those who will say that was audacity. And you need some audacity as a leader. No. If that misstep has been taken technically, as you alluded, how do you reverse the consequences that we are seeing?
Well, reversing the consequences is going back to the drawing board. From the address he gave to the nation a couple of days ago, it's as if he was saying the issue of subsidy is gone and they're not going to revisit it. I think that was very, very serious error. If I were him, we admit, accept that there were problems, accept that there were some errors, that you are going to look at it, and immediately after that, people will see you putting in place, looking into that matter. Let it be public. For example, immediately the crisis started and you discovered that the issue of subsidy is the #1 thing people are complaining about, high cost of fuel and petrol. Set up a technical committee. Let there be some open public hearing. Technical people sitting down to see what exactly is going on. Up to this moment, Shehu, there are arguments that subsidy is still being paid in some whatever name you call it. So if you are still paying subsidy in different name, in different ways, why are you now telling the nation that subsidy, there is no going back? We look at it. Every person in Nigeria, especially at the elite level, believe that, yes, subsidy was found to be a source of wastages. That does not mean it should not be revisited and looked into. If I were him, I would set up a technical committee. I hope that is being done, but the public are not being carried along with it.
But it doesn't look like President Tinubu is going to back down. He's doubled down, rather, on that. It's very vehement. It's that we cannot be funding our neighboring countries. We cannot be feeding some scavengers who are sucking the economy dry. Rather, we're going to put those money into developmental projects.
It's like throwing the water along with the baby. If there are problems in a particular system, if there is a problem on a particular policy, that does not mean scrapping it totally is the solution. You go into it, find ways of adjustment to carry people along. I think this was being done by previous leaders in Nigeria. It was being gradually attended to. And any time a government takes a decision and it discovered that it has given rise to serious problems, there's nothing wrong in backing.
So it was a political suicide, ab initio.
Well, I think that is, I've said it before, the very day he said subsidy is gone, most Nigerians didn't even remember that it was Buhari that started it, that removed subsidy from the budget. But the day he was being sworn, he said subsidy is gone. So 90%.
Can you blame Bola Tinubu for what is going on? Those who say, look, Buhari has left him a dead economy. Buhari left him a dead baby to resuscitate. And that he's doing his best to resuscitate it. And this is a government that just spent a year and about 2 months. Can you blame such a person? Does he need some time to be able to fix things, you think?
There's hardly any new government that does not inherit problems. There is no government living that will not leave behind issues. This blame game should not be there. Buhari spent almost 2/3 of his time blaming PDP government. And if Tinubu will come and start blaming Buhari, it's not the issue. There are always going to be problems on ground. What is important, what are you doing to address the problem?
You contested for president before.
Yeah, yes, I did.
If you were in that seat today, Senator Shekarau, what would you do differently?
I have told you, one, it's not just to say that I recognize there is hunger. We identify these issues mentioned. Don't forget, the protesters gave government almost 4 weeks' notice. If I give you notice that I was coming to fight you, and you went to sleep, and then that's your problem. So I think there was enough time for the government. I don't know, I haven't the details. Probably they were doing a lot of backyard measures, but the public were not carried along. The leaders of identified civil societies and organizations were not carried along. We waited until there's fire on the mountain, then we came running. Within the period of the notice of the, probably they naively did not expect it to be at that level, but I expect that if I were there, immediately the threat came, or rather the pronouncement that was going to be protest.
Yeah, we have a president.
Yes.
He's the man in the saddle.
Yeah.
He's leading our lives, either we like it or not.
Absolutely.
Our destinies are in his hands right now to help him.
Yeah.
Because he needs a lot of help as it is right now.
Well,
and we should pray to God that he does well and he performs.
In fact, that is my prayer. And as we say in the teaching job, the best learning is when you learn through your mistakes. Let the government sit back, identify what areas have you made some errors, what mistakes have you made, what pronouncements were made in error, what policies were put in place that are really breeding this kind of crisis of hunger, high cost of living, inflation to about 40–45%.
How do you, if you were in the shoe, how do you press the panic or the reset button? How do you, what would you do immediately?
Well, immediately, as I said, the issue is appreciate item by item that these problems are real, they are there. And then you identify relevant sectors, relevant people that will come in and carry the people along.
You don't think he has a team that can get the job done right now?
Well, I don't know who is who in his appointment. I cannot assess whether the right people. The question is the people are not being properly carried along. I think they are working up to that now. I've seen a lot of publicity, a lot of communication. I was watching the Minister of Information visiting the media houses and exchanging some discussions, some information. People need to be carried along as to what you're doing.
But do you believe in the capacity of President Tinubu to get the job done?
I think if he knew he wouldn't be able to do it, I don't think he would have put up himself to do it. I pray for him, and I pray this is going to be a learning process that, as I said, you learn through your mistakes. Admit there are some wrongs that have been committed, some errors, probably certain things have been taken for granted, and this is the time to sit down back and address them. We are still hopeful, and I pray that the government succeeds. Regardless, my own opposition is not a blind opposition. Once you are in office, we pray for you. Because if he fails, it is the same student that will be suffering.
Senator Ibrahim Shekarau, former governor of Kano State, a former minister, and a former senator. Thank you so much indeed. Always a pleasure listening to you with your wealth of experience. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure. Thank you.
Once again.
But that's our show for tonight, everyone. Our hearts and our soul breathe Nigeria. We pray for our nation. We want it to be better. We want it to be great. We want it to live to its dreams of the forefathers. But how can that happen if the leaders don't succeed? And that's why we all need to pray for our leaders, especially the president. He must succeed. And God bless Nigeria. And that's our bid tonight, everyone. Thank you so much. Good night.